Well, over the past few weeks, we've talked about letting go of fear, of guilt and blame, letting go of shame, letting go of grief, and letting go of lies. And today, I'd like for us to talk about letting go, part 6, illusions. Now, in preparing for today's message, I ran some searches trying to find some Bible verses that talk specifically and explicitly about illusion. And, well, I didn't really find much. What I did find were verses such as Revelation chapter 22 and verse 15. Outside are the dogs and sorcerers and the sexually immoral and murderers and idolaters and everyone who loves and practices falsehood. Now, okay, I suppose the practices falsehood part could work, and we talked about that one last week when we were talking about lies. Next, this verse in Isaiah 8:19 was listed. And when they say to you, inquire of the mediums and the necromancers who chirp and mutter, should not a people inquire of their God? Should they inquire of the dead on behalf of the living? Well, I guess when we think of mediums, we think of magicians. And when we think of magicians, we think of illusionists. Therefore, illusions. But that's not quite what we're talking about today. Finally, I found this verse in Isaiah chapter 30 and verse 10, which is closer to the type of illusions we are addressing today. They say to the seers, see no more visions, and to the prophets, give us no more visions of what is right. Tell us pleasant things, prophesy illusions. Prophesy illusions. Isn't that what mankind has always wanted? Consider it for just a moment. Throughout history, when someone goes around just telling stories that open people's eyes to the truth concerning their long-held illusions, those people tend to end up getting killed, don't they? Tell us pleasant things. Prophesy illusions. You know, we stop up our ears in an unconscious attempt to protect the illusions that have become a part of who we think we are. And I didn't say they stop up their ears. We do it. You have done it. I have done it. We do it all the time. Don't believe me? Good. Just look for yourself and see the reality of what is. Recently, I posted something on Facebook in a response to all the posts I was seeing that people were sharing about animal abuse. Some posts that they shared pointed out the evils of the dog-eating festival in China. Others shared outrage against people who kept their dogs and cats in small cages. Another one was a video that showed a man pushing a donkey off of a cliff just for his own entertainment. And of course, the comments underneath that video called for the man's imprisonment, or even something called for his execution. Let it be done to him as he did to that poor donkey. Well, so far, so good, right? But the same people who condemned eating dogs eat other animals themselves. And the same people who condemn putting cats and dogs in little cages, or some of them even object to putting them on chains in the yard, pay other people to lock up pigs in tiny cages in which they can barely move, or to house chickens in tiny cages, stacked on top of other chickens in tiny cages so they can lay eggs for them, or to keep cows pregnant, locked in small spaces, and strip away their babies from them while the cows cry out for their newborns, just so we can drink their milk instead. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't condemning in my post those actions. I personally think it's a horrible consequence of our unconscious gluttony, but that wasn't the point. I was just pointing out our double-mindedness. You see, the things I just mentioned are not opinions, but they're just facts, just the way it is. And yet, people get angry when someone simply states what is undeniably true, if it challenges their illusions. We love our illusions. And what do I mean by our double-mindedness? Well, double-mindedness means this. A double-minded person is confused in his thoughts, his actions, and his behavior. Such a person is in conflict with himself. So just consider this with me. If we condemn the man who, for his own entertainment, pushes a donkey off a cliff, but we, for the self-entertainment that we call appetite, pay someone to abuse and slaughter innocent creatures, then are we not double-minded? We are attached to conflicting opinions, and thus we are holding on to illusions, are we not? Is it right to push a donkey off a cliff just for fun? Now, most of us would say no, of course not. Is it right to put a baby calf in a tiny box where it can't move and feed it a diet that causes them to be malnourished on purpose so we can put their tender corpse on our plate and deceptively call it veal? Now, many of us would say, no, that's cruel. I would never participate in that. And is it right to feed our appetite for animal flesh for every meal on any budget so much that we necessitate the use of factory farms and result in the serious pollution caused by our growing appetite for cheap, dead flesh? Now, I bet somebody is offending themselves as I ask these questions. But I'm just asking. I'm just using accurate words. If I called it affordable meat or a fast food hamburger or budget-friendly hot dogs or Spam, would people become less angry? But a hamburger is what? It's usually the ground-up corpse of a spent dairy cow. A filet mignon is really the muscles, tendons, and blood of the corpse of a dead bull. If you want to eat it, then eat it. Go ahead. But why get angry when it's accurately labeled, unless you prefer illusion to raw truth? I'm not telling you to stop eating flesh. But when our illusions are threatened by the facts, the mind makes an enemy out of whomever is pointing out the real nature of its beloved mirage. So, eat a corpse. But don't think that it came from a happy animal who wanted to die. And don't think you need to eat it to survive or even to thrive. And don't think that it's not bad for you and bad for the environment. Wait a minute, you are telling me to not eat meat. What did I say that isn't true? just facts. I'm not telling you to change a thing. I'm just pointing out one little example of our illusions and how attached we are to them. That's all. And food is an easy one. People get really angry. People get highly offended. People get all religious. But God commanded Peter to eat animals when he lowered down the sheet in that vision. So you are calling God a liar. If you say that eating meat isn't good for you, or abusing animals is wrong, well, as long as you're going to eat them afterwards, or if you say that a steak is a corpse, when everybody knows that's not true, well, okay, so maybe it is a corpse, but corpse is just a word that makes it sound unappealing. Just like steak is a word that makes it sound like something besides a corpse. Which one is the illusion? Okay. Enough on meat already. I'm just driving home the point today. And that point is not about food. The point is illusions. We, not they, but we have illusions. And we defend them even beyond reason. Because without knowing it, we are attached to our self-deceit. It is a vital part of who we think we are. Even if we think that's not the case, our feelings and our reactions to anything which might shed some light on our illusions reveals that indeed they are part of the self that I call me. Illusions. If any choice or lifestyle depends upon illusions, hear this, if any choice or lifestyle depends upon illusions to stay in place and to seem like the right choice, then chances are pretty good that it's not the best choice you could make. Consider with me for a moment the Islamic religion. Without attachments to those religious beliefs, or without identification with the underlying system, then cutting off people's heads or blowing them up or raping their women or turning them into slaves just because they do not believe what you tell them to believe just might look a tad bit wrong, don't you think? But bring in the illusion that terrorism is holy warfare and raping unbelievers is pleasing to God, just what they deserve, and blowing up women and children, if they really are infidels, and thus pigs and dogs, will guarantee you instant eternity in paradise with 72 virgin women, all to yourself. And suddenly, presto changeo, women and children become sluts and bastards, and terrorism and murder become holy war and justice. Is that example easier for you to accept? And if so, why? Well, most of us listening to this probably don't identify with the label Muslim. And most of us don't believe heaven will mean living in a gangsta's paradise. So their illusions are easier to see, are they not? Because we are not attached to them. Go ahead and expose other people's illusions. Just don't go near to mine. In fact, I don't have any. They say to the seers, do not see, and to the prophets, do not reveal to us how things really are. Instead, tell us pleasant things and show us illusions. To be free from illusions, you must let go. The Muslim, holding on to his or her beliefs in the teachings of Muhammad, if they let those beliefs go, the illusions would go all on their own, would they not? The average person in a wealthy nation holding on to their beliefs and their traditions about what they eat, if they let those ideas and those beliefs go, the majority, if they just looked at what was and called it what it was, the majority would probably go vegan. And those who don't would probably stop getting angry about other people who abuse or kill the animals that they view as less plate-worthy. You know, illusions can be seen anytime there are blank spaces in any story, just to give another example. Somebody says or does something, and we assume a certain motivation. If some facts are left out of the story without even realizing it, we will fill in the spaces with various assumptions. Now, we might know in the head that we don't really know those details, but we feel as though such and such is probably true, probably the way it is. Be fully present and watch long enough, and you will see firsthand how we are convinced that certain details are absolutely true, when in reality, our conclusions have absolutely no foundation whatsoever, no facts. This also affects our memories of what people said or what they did or didn't do. We offend ourselves because of our assumptions. We make enemies because of them. We see the whole situation through the thick filter of the mind's illusions, and then we wonder why life seems so hard. Illusions. How do we let go of our illusions? Well, if you're holding on to the story of life, if you're holding on to the false you that is composed in part of those stories and various beliefs, then you will dwell under the constant shadow of illusion. There's no way around it. Well, we've been talking about letting go of our attachments. And when you begin dwelling in the place of eternity and presence rather than staying in the head, then the things to which you have become attached will start to become visible to you one by one, without even trying. And by recognizing them, and recognizing that they are illusions, and fully accepting that you are indeed attached to them, without judging or fighting that fact, or labeling it, then realizing them and releasing them, rather, will be within your reach. And it will often happen all on its own. And that is not an illusion. Rather, it is a direct observation, observation that you can observe for yourself. Just let go of the need to be free from illusions as well. Or let go of the need to believe that you are illusion-free, or the need to become free of illusions. God will reveal to you one illusion at a time as you let go of your attachments to the things of this earth, and to the things in the head, and to the things of the self. In fact, if you are open to that, then that is God's doing. And if you aren't, if you feel angry, or if you feel defensive, or if you feel superior, then that is God's doing too. Or more accurately, your acknowledgement of that fact of your anger, your defensiveness, your feeling of righteousness, your feeling of exultation because you know better. That is a step toward waking up. Consider this. If no one lived in darkness, no one could step into the light. Dwell in God's presence. Live there. Stay there. Remain there. Be present there. Let go of being right. Let go of opinions. You might still have opinions, or they might change. Doesn't matter. But you will cease to imagine that they are absolute truth, or that they are even a part of who you really are. Let go of perceptions. They might be correct, or they might be flawed, but you will cease to hold on to your vision of the world. Let go of persuasions. Your political party then has your permission to be wrong, as does your own point of view. You cease to take those persuasions personally or seriously, and therefore they lose their power over you. This is letting go of illusions. Illusions block our vision. Illusions lead us astray. Illusions separate us and divide us. Illusions just make us stupid until we let them go.